welcome to the Kemetic How-To Guide for Egyptian Pagan and Kemetic practitioners. I'm your host, Sharon. Last episode we talked about building an altar, and I got a couple of questions, and so I'm going to use that to segue into today's topic, which is about icons. The question I got was, why do you have shawls or robes on your icons? And I've got a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I'm a very big fan of Tutankhamun, and actually, oddly enough, this was my first icon statue. It was a gift from my brother, and I've got several books on Tutankhamun, and they show pictures of when his tomb was open, when they were finding things as they had been left, and a lot of the statues, if not all of them, had some kind of a shawl over them. And later on, when I got to read the Book of the Dead, there were several passages that made me think of those pictures. So let me see if I can show you a few. This first one you might have seen before, and it's the statue of Anubis that was guarding the doorway to one room. "O you falcon within the shrine, may I be revealed to him on whom is a fringed garment. So says Horus, son of Isis." And that's from chapter 71 of the Book of the Dead. Now this one, it's an even better picture because you see three different statues and they all have shawls over them. And you can even see the shrine that they were put in. And another passage to go with it. "O provision town, I have come unto you. I have woven the 8-weave cloth. I have donned the fringed cloak as Ra in the sky, when the gods who are in the sky serve," or whom the gods who are in the sky serve. And that's from chapter 110. So, it just seemed like the appropriate thing to do. And as some other commenters have pointed out, statues that were housed in temples, they had robes that they would put on them every day. So, going from that, I wanted to address sort of a controversy among different Kemetic practitioners and traditions about the use of icon statues and whether or not you should perform the opening of the mouth on them to consecrate them. The argument against it is that mouth opening a statue means that the deity is constantly there and you have to offer to them every day or else they'll get upset with you. That's the argument against doing an opening of the mouth on a statue. My response to that is threefold. For one, the deity that is coming into this icon statue, the statue isn't them. That's just a vessel. They can go wherever they want to. They're our God. And even if you don't offer to them today, somebody else might be offering. And so they're going, "Oh, well, you know, Susie doesn't have anything for me today, but, you know, Bill over here is offering chocolates today, so I think I'll come over to his house." You know, it doesn't mean that they're, you know, going to get upset with you. Besides, are they really that trite? You know, they're going to smite you just because, you know, they miss a meal on your account? Come on. And another thing that's rather interesting is, you know, I have quite a few icons that I've collected here, and I work with them. Certain ones I work with for particular holidays and observances and, you know, so on. When I was packing up to move back in June, I really was reluctant to put them away. I didn't want to. I wanted to, you know, I wanted to pack them up on the last day. But I kept hearing from them, "No, put us away. You know, we need to be, you know, out of harm's way." It's funny. Not long after I got that impression from them, some contractors came in because they needed a remodel in the apartment. So I had to pack them up anyway. If receiving offerings every day was that essential, I think they would have said something, you know, instead of saying, "Look, get us out of the way, you know, you need to get finished packing." So, and I also have another bit of background. I talked last episode a bit about my Buddhist shrine that I had built when I was part of a Buddhist group. They got into some pretty crazy sectarian arguments too, because the group that I was in was an offshoot of a Japanese school called the Nichiren Shoshu. And there was a lot of rivalry back and forth between them. And so they were saying, well, if you have a scroll that's been, inscribed and consecrated by the Shoshu, then that's bad mojo, and we're the only legitimate successor of Nichiren, and da-da-da-da. All it amounted to was polemics and fear-mongering. And I want to speak out against that in the Kemetic community. We don't need that. So if it's not necessary to, open the mouth on your statues, you can still use them without it. But if you feel that that's something that'll help you with your practice, don't let somebody scare you away from it. You do what you feel is right. And so that's my soapbox on that. Another question that I've had is, where do I find statues? Online stores are a great place. Most of mine I go on eBay and I look for different sellers. Be careful, because some of them are drop ship sellers, and if they don't have something in stock, you could be waiting forever to get one. That's a real pain in the butt. Azure Green and actual catalogs, are another source. If you live in a bigger city, or sometimes if you just know, and if you're in an area that has really good New Age alternative, pagan supply stores, sometimes they'll have statues. Every now and again, you'll find somebody who actually is an artist and makes them. I know of a gal who goes by Mask of Anapu online, and she sculpts statues. My understanding is that she's got a perpetual backlog because there are people asking her to do stuff. I have a friend that actually sculpted my statue of Sekhmet. This is actually a resin casting of an original that she did. Only thing is, because she deals in very small quantities, they're very expensive. They're a lot more than the $30 that they run on average online. And as a matter of fact, this one that she did is actually bronze, and I think she has one or two, but as you might imagine, those aren't cheap. This one was a gift. So, another thing, this is a good rule of thumb if you're trying to find a statue that's historically accurate, because there's some of them out there that are very beautiful. There's some very talented artists who kind of did their own take on deities. Isis is really popular. Anubis is another one. But not all of them are historically accurate. One way that you can tell is with what art historians call the rule of frontality. And this applies specifically to Egyptian sculpture. And what that means basically is that whether a statue is standing or sitting, it's always facing straight ahead. It's facing frontally. As opposed to, if you think of Greek sculpture, you had things that were kind of arced like this, or looking down, or whatever. Well, that's because they were sculpting for a different purpose. The Egyptians, when they did a sculpture, whether it was in metal or stone, it was meant to interact with the viewer, either because it was in a shrine, or if it was in a temple or guarding a gateway. My theory is that a lot of the big statues, the colossal ones that you see now, they got offerings too. Average people probably came and put flowers or incense or whatever at the feet of these statues. So in order to do that, they had to be facing frontally. So if you see a statue that looks like that, online, chances are it's, historically accurate. And of course, if you flip through enough books, that, have Egyptian artifacts in them, sometimes you'll recognize things. If I can get back to one. On one page here, you've got a couple of very famous statues, in fact. For example, there's Tutankhamun. This was based off of an original artifact. And, of course, everybody here's probably seen statues of this Anubis shrine. And Ptah here. My Ptah statue is based off of this. And my husband saw the original, and because it was in the Turing Tut exhibit, and he said, and the Oscar goes to, because he looks kind of like an Oscar statue. That's another way you can familiarize yourself, and that way you can tell if something's authentic or not. But ultimately, if it speaks to you, go ahead and grab it. Hopefully this will give you some useful input when it comes to seeking out icons for your own altar. Keep in mind, though, that they're not essential in order for you to practice as an Egyptian pagan or Kemetic. You know, the gods are much bigger and much, there's much more to them than just a little statue like this. So, and there was a user from Following the Sun forum who posted some altar pictures. There were no icon statues there. It was just the flowers and the candles and the incense. It was still beautiful. So, hopefully this will give you some pointers and information for your own Egyptian pagan or Kemetic practice. So for the Kemetic How-To Guide, this is Sharon, wishing you Synapti.